we have to go through. On your screen, you'll see a PowerPoint presentation in the center, legislative update by David Furman, all that fun stuff. This should take up most of your screen. There should also be a small box on the bottom right-hand side of the screen with the video feed. That's the presenter, me. On the left side of your menu, please select the questions and answers icon and type all of your questions there, which you will address at the end of the webinar. And given the topic of this, normally, if you guys have been in any of my presentations, oh, by the way, my name's David Furman, you know I kind of like to get interrupted and I will answer questions as we go along. Given the magnitude and breadth of at least two of these bills, I'm not going to do that until we get through the actual presentation. Then I will go through and answer any questions that come up. I know there are going to be questions. These are two big monster bills. So I will address those at the end of the session. Unfortunately, I think it's just for economies and being respectful to everybody, that's the way we have to do it. Okay, CMCA credits are automatically generated once the webinar hosting site provides an attendance confirmation report, meaning you have to be here the entire time. And will be sent via email within 48 hours of the webinar. So they're coming, I promise. These credits are not transferable. It means you've got to be you. Please email education@altitude.law or call Sean directly at 303-991-2076. He's like super friendly and will take care of any questions you have about receiving your CMCA certificates. So with that being said, let the fun begin. All right, this is the 10th annual, at least my 10th annual, legislative update. Normally we have case law thrown into there too, but this year, because of the very active legislature, we booted it. I got 90 minutes worth of material for y'all's here, and we're going to go through it just for fun. Here we go. All right. This was deemed by me the year of HOA abuses. The session, in HOA land at least, was all about the Green Valley Ranch, and at the very end of it, all about the Champlain Towers in Florida. And you're going to see that in the two biggest bills that were introduced. As you guys all saw, the foreclosure numbers in Green Valley Ranch, there was massive public outcry. Oh, no. So the legislature was under tremendous political pressure to do something. And, well, they did. So without further ado, let's look at the unsuccessful bills. Representative Titone brought back the regulation of community association managers. If you guys put back on your way back hats, you'll remember that legislation, Governor Polis vetoed the manager licensure bill that would have reenacted the manager licensing status in the state. It died for a couple years. This bill tried to bring it back to the regulation of management companies. It really wasn't individual managers, but management companies. This was introduced and died a pretty quick and significant death. I really don't think we're going to see this one again. It is one that, you know, again, has been brought up a couple different times and has really gotten no traction whatsoever. So I think we can safely say now that the Sunrise Report has been done and allowed to sunset again, it's gone. Another bill that was introduced was really kind of a strange bill, and it was 2260. And if you recall, it limited fee increases for the use of common areas year over year. And what it was trying to get at, I'm really not sure, because it said that you can't increase the fee to use like the clubhouse, or you can't increase the fee to use the pool a certain percentage year over year. Well, that made absolutely no sense because, one, it didn't differentiate between owner, tenant, or quite frankly, outside user. If you rent your pool to, or your clubhouse to outside users, it limited the amount of fees you could do. So really what would have happened is the association this year, before the bill came into play, if it had passed, would have just jacked up its prices and then made it worse for everybody. So I think kind of seeing common sense on that, it died, again, a pretty quick and painful death. All right. With that being said, let's look at the bills that have actually been signed. These are law. They are made it to the governor's desk and have been signed by the governor. HB 221040, access to the common areas. This is a sneakily problematic bill. it really kind of flew under the radar. Nobody, because of the other two big bills that were out there, nobody really paid much attention to this. And this bill requires an association to affirmatively preserve and protect an owner's ability to use and enjoy the common elements. Think about that statement for a second. An affirmative duty to preserve and protect an owner's, guests, or tenant's ability to use and enjoy the common elements. There can be no unreasonable restriction or prohibition on owners' access to or enjoyment of the common elements, even during the maintenance and repair replacement. You can only close a common element for the minimum amount of time possible, and the closure must be necessary to protect the public, to protect the owners, or to protect the employees, the contractors that are making the repairs. If it is closed for more than 72 hours, you must give notice, both on your website and at the closure, asking or giving the number and email address of somebody can receive, quite frankly, complaints. They say that the bill states to discuss the disclosure, but it's really complaints. So HB 22-1040 was in response to clubhouse pool closures during COVID. It absolutely was. In my opinion, this was many owners were very upset that the association just closed their pools during COVID. And many owners complained. This now prohibits that. You cannot close your pool just for COVID. You also can't close your pool just to save money. Can't close your pool for hot tub, or your hot tub just, to save money. I facetiously made a comment of this bill is pretty wide open, and it really is pretty much non-specific, that when it says preserve and protect the owner's ability to use and enjoy the common elements, does that mean you can't close your pool in the winter? I'm not arguing that. I think you absolutely can, because obviously the cost of performing maintenance on a pool during the winter is absolutely ridiculous. But you can no longer just say, okay, we're going to close this for convenience, or this tennis court has a huge crack in the middle and nobody really uses the tennis court, so we're going to go ahead and we're just going to shut it down until we have money to repair it. No, there's an affirmative duty to protect, so therefore you can no longer just turn a blind eye to the repairs that are needed to the common elements, specifically, kind of those recreation facilities that you may have. You have to affirmatively fix those. So what about a perimeter gate? Well, what about a perimeter gate? Is it a common element? Yes. Do you have to protect somebody's ability to use it or make sure that it performs in its function that it's originally designed? Yeah, you certainly do. You cannot allow a perimeter gate, or you cannot allow a perimeter fence to fall into disrepair. Will this affect pools that were closed several years ago? Every common element. This has been signed into law. It becomes law effective September. Therefore, if you have a pool that was closed for any reason, you now have an affirmative duty to reopen that pool. Find the money, reopen it. You cannot close these pools for convenience anymore. Tennis courts are common elements. Same thing. If you have tennis courts out there that you must affirmatively protect an owner's right to use them, if the nets are damaged, replace the nets. If you have weeds popping up all over, guess what? Pull the weeds, resurface the tennis courts. This is absolutely a requirement. Question, does this require that clubhouses be left unlocked or accessible to residents if it's typically closed except for reservations? You can close the clubhouse if it's reserved for reservations. I mean, that's a policy, but you must make sure that clubhouse is in fact available for rental by an owner at any time. You can't close it and say this clubhouse is in disrepair, it's closed for rentals. No, you must make it available for renters. You have to. There is no way around this anymore. What would you recommend when contractors, due to labor shortages, cannot service or open a pool? Not a board decision, but at the mercy of the contractor. 72-hour notice, Lisa, and you better put your name and email address as the person to contact regarding the closure and why it's not open. And when I say that, I jokingly say my email address is not available for these functions. Just not. Will this affect owners where covenant state prohibit the use of an owner is in arrears on dues? You know, if the covenants say an owner can't use it because they're arrear on dues, I think you're fine. But again, the fact is, as long as you are protecting everybody else's use, it's not, you must think about this as, again, you must make the common elements available for their intended purpose. And you can only close them for the absolute minimum amount of time required to implement repairs. And it's only if the closure is required for the life, health, safety of either the user or the repair person. Guys, here we go. Will this affect owners? No. Human waste in the pool, I need to wait 72 hours to close the pool. No, you don't need to wait 72 hours. It's 72-hour notice if it is closed. If you have human waste in the pool and it has to be drained, drain the pool. If you can't fill it for 72 hours to get it back open, put a notice of why it was closed, what repairs are being done, and when it will open again. If you get a majority of homeowners that want to close some common element, no. Don, no. That right there is it. If you have owners that want to close it for budgetary restrictions, it only takes one owner to throw that out of whack. This is not a majority rule type thing of we don't want to fund this pool this year, because I always use, as you know, Jerk David comes into the community. Jerk David wants to go to the pool. Jerk David is allowed to go to that pool. You have to preserve it for my use. You cannot have an owner vote to close it. If you want to owner vote to close it, amend the declaration to remove the pool as a common element and fill in the hole. You cannot do that anymore. All right, hang on, guys. We are going through this. If you've taken it, well, there you go. What majority of homeowners that want to close some common element? No, can't, because it's better be an amendment to the declaration. If you have taken an amenity such as a tennis court out of the declaration with formal amendment, do you still need to do it? No, that's it. Merle, if you have taken it out and amended the declaration, it's no longer an amenity. You don't have to do it. It's not a common element, but you better be doing something with it, paving it over, making it a park, doing whatever. All right. Importantly, if you have contract work happening in an area, you can only close common areas to the extent necessary to do the work. Correct. I.e., parking areas cannot be closed while work on the pool is taking place. Probably correct. You have to keep that parking lot open. Now, people can come park and not go to the pool. That's great. But it's one of those things you can also, when you're doing repairs on that parking lot, you can only close it for the shortest amount of time possible to do those repairs, and you have to open it. If the repairs are more than 72 hours, post the notice. How in the world did this sneak through? Good question. What about an entrance gate? That doesn't work. Do they have to fix it? Yep, fix it. Does this affect owners? Well, guys, hang on. Since this becomes, let me see. Does this affect owners who are delinquent and lose access to common elements? No. Again, we talked about that. If owners are delinquent and lose access, it's not their right to use it that you're protecting. It is the owners generally. Since this becomes effective in September, do we need to implement this now? I wouldn't wait. This is something that, again, I hate to have you guys come in September and go, oh my gosh, we don't have this open. No, I would start getting your common areas up and running now. Why wait? It's one of those things that if you can get the contractor now. Now, if you don't have for it, you have until September to get the money. Let me see, for common areas, does this mean that owners or their contractors can drive on the common areas or native areas even when they cause damage? Time out, hang on. For common areas, does this? No. The common areas can only be used for their intended purpose. I think that's a reasonable restriction. It does not mean owners can drive over your parks. It does not mean owners can get on your roof to have a stargazing party. It means they must be used in accordance with their intended purpose. That it's you just have to protect, like I said, the keys are preserve and protect an owner's ability to use and enjoy the common elements. You have an affirmative duty to do that now. I have common areas with a restrictive easement, which is with the water department, is in the declaration as well. I will not allow access to residents for landscaping projects. Again, you don't have to, this is not a bill that says expand use of the common areas. It's a bill that says you must preserve and protect the use for their intended purposes. And guys, I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm inserting the words intended purpose. That is not in the bill. It says you have to, the exact language, preserve and protect an owner's ability to use and enjoy the common elements. So I am implying that reasonable restrictions that you already have that are in the declaration. Again, you don't have to have your pool open 365. You can have the closures that are in the best interest of the community. But if you have a pool, it better be open during the summer. Okay? All right. A huge issue, will be with HOAs where a special assessments require owner approval. If it's a special assessment, it's needed to repair a common element for safe usage, but I suspect this will cause special assessments will go through the roof. We're going to talk about special assessments in a little bit. We're going to talk about all sorts of funding in a little bit. This was the non-controversial bill. You believe that? May I keep it closed? No. Oh, it's a native field. No, you cannot keep it closed. Owners, if they want to hike in your native field, they probably have a right to hike in your native field if it's just open space. That is where this problem with this bill comes into play. All right, is there a plan to challenge this in the court? Well, you can petition, you can put it on the ballot and have the owners veto it or reject it in November for the election. But that means you have to go through the referendum and petition process, meaning you got to get a whole bunch of petition signatures out there from all 64 counties in the state of Colorado to put this on the ballot for approval. There's nothing unconstitutional about this law. The association didn't, the legislature didn't abuse their discretion. If the HOA has an indoor pool that is open all year and an outdoor pool that is closed during the winter, can that procedure still be followed? Yes, I believe so. Keeping open, again, the indoor pool is intended for the intended purpose. Outdoor was intended to be closed during the winter. Again, this is not something that should really alter how you are using things. What it really did is take away, in my opinion, the optional closure of pools or clubhouses because you don't want to fix them. That's what this takes away. If you had a sauna that you left closed because one, nobody uses it, and two, it was really expensive to fix, guess what? You better go fix it, or you better amend your declaration, take it out. That's what this bill really does to you. All right, keep your questions on 1040. When we get to the end, we'll come back and double back around because, like I said, this was the simple one. Next, proxies. This was another easy one. I jokingly said this bill accomplished absolutely nothing. In fairness, it did accomplish something. Proxies cannot be set up for any more than 11 months. You cannot have a 3-year proxy. You cannot have this perpetual evergreen proxy that keeps coming back. Proxies are void after 11 months, period, end of story. So during your annual meetings, you do this anyway. Send out new proxies every year because, quite frankly, they're not good. The ones from 2021 are no longer good in 2022. The ones, you kind of get the drift. It's easy. All right. Last one that is signed. Regulating the use of the public rights of way. This bill's simple enough. This is the text of it right here. The use of a public right of way in accordance with local government's ordinance, resolution or rule, franchise license, or charter provision regarding the use of the public right of way cannot be prohibited or regulated by the community. Additionally, the association shall not require that a public right of way be used in certain manner. Subsection 2, as used in this subsection 1D5, local government means a statutory or home rule county, municipality, or city or county. Okay? Like I said, simple enough bill. It's causing quite the stir. Let's dissect this bad boy for a minute. The use of a public right-of-way in accordance, the association shall not regulate the use of a public right-of-way in accordance with the local government's ordinance, resolution, rule, franchise license, or charter. Means you can't tow off of public streets. Fair enough? I think everybody gets that. Has anybody actually looked at their plats lately and realized that in newer communities, the tree lawns are part of the public right-of-way? Can you now no longer regulate the use of the tree lawns, enforce covenants? Can you require that they not be used in a certain right-of-way or a certain manner? I think this becomes really problematic with some of this stuff because, again, if you have historically enforced landscaping restrictions on tree lawns, does this new statute take that ability away from you? Also, if you are one of the few communities that have been allowed to tow off of public streets, can you continue to do it? I don't know. I've been dealing with one particular association, and getting a lot of back and forth and really unknown from the municipal entity that's involved. It becomes really problematic. So with this one, bottom line, right this very second, this bill was intended to prevent towing. Don't tow off of a public street. Do not boot on a public street. Don't try and regulate anything on a public street. You are not public street enforcers any longer. All right, we're in a metro district that does not allow parking on the roadway. The POA enforces this rule. Can we continue asking people not to park on the roadway? Can you continue? Yes. You can ask them not to park on the roadway. Can you enforce it by the property owners? No, you cannot enforce it. The association is specifically prohibited from enforcing public rights of way. Okay. Can the HOA enforce rules against boats, campers, trailers, etc., being parked in front of homes on public streets? No, you cannot. It's a public right of way. You cannot, as an owners association, regulate the parking of anything in a public right of way. If the county, city, municipal entity has rules against trailers, can you complain to the county, city? Yes, you most certainly can, but you cannot enforce. That is not the association's job any longer. If I want to bring my Airstream and if I want to park it in front of somebody's house and leave it there, I can leave my trailer in front of somebody's house. There are absolutely nothing the association can do about it. This bill is signed. It becomes effective this September. What about metro districts? Good question. Local government, statutory or home rule county, municipality, or city and county. It's really not a municipality. It's a special district. It's a city and county. No, it's not a city and county. Have the Title 32 metro districts been exempted from this bill? Yeah, probably. Mostly because they don't adopt rules and regulations regarding use of a public right of way. Do I think a metro district might be able to enforce on public streets? Maybe, if they have that authority. The bill that was going to restrict metro districts' authority to enforce covenants, private covenants, was amended, so they still have that authority. I think generally speaking, yeah, a metro district might be able to. HOA requires homeowners to replace dead trees in city strips. What application under this new law? Tracy, that's a really good question. Again, that's regulating the use of the public right of way. If the tree lawn is in the public right of way, I don't know if you can continue to enforce that other than the fact that it's both defined use, probably in your ODP, your official development plan. The PUD probably has these things in it. I think you might be able to sit there and still enforce against that. So it's still my recommendation that this bill is really limited to parking. I think you can still go after the aesthetics, replace your trees. That's not guaranteed. It may be that an owner can let their tree lawns go to crap, and you may do a whole lot about it. That's the strict interpretation of this is the HOA, the association, cannot regulate the use of a public right of way in accordance with local government's ordinance. They just can't do it. We'll have to see. I think you can still send notices. I think you probably should, but that we're going to start looking at that on a case-by-case basis. Let me see. HOA should also look closely. Yep, there you go. The official development plan. All right, the next one. A community I manage does not allow commercial vehicles. We may no longer enforce violations for fines or parking them on the street. No, you can't. You cannot restrict the public right of way at all. Commercial vehicles, my trailer in your community, somebody else's trailer in your community, my POS car that's missing 3 windshields or 1 windshield and 2 tires, you, association, cannot enforce against that. Now, the county can, the city can, and they're going to do my best recommendation, inundate your municipal entity with complaints for anything you don't think is parked in accordance with the local municipal entity's regulations. Make them come out and take care of it. That's the only way this will be looked at again is when the cities and the counties throw their arms up and say, we can no longer enforce this. Okay. Can the HOA enforce portable sports equipment that owners pull into the street to use and not put back? Lisa, a noble effort? No, you are regulating the use of the common element or the public right of way. You cannot do that any longer. Okay? Districts, District's Title 32, not Title 38. Talk to your legal counsel regarding the right-of-way enforcement. Absolutely. Like I said, I think metro districts have been exempted from this because they are not a local government or a statutory or home rule county. They're not. Good call. Are we still able to go after expired tags? No. Or inoperable vehicles. Where are they? If you are talking about in the public right-of-way, no. Now, I've got problems with associations, and I'm going to get on a soapbox for about 2 seconds. Associations shouldn't be regulating against expired tags anyway. Okay? That is payment of a tax. You are not a tax collecting authority. Why do you, association, want to go after somebody with expired tags if it's a daily driver? Why do you care if I don't want to pay my taxes? All right, I'm off my soapbox. Bottom line, I wouldn't go after expired tags. Can you go after inoperable vehicles? You can on common elements. You cannot on the public right of way. No association can regulate the use of the public right of way. Complain to your city. What if your association has rules about vehicles with expired tags, flat tires? Just answered the question. No, if they're on the public right of way. Is the public right of way restricts parking from 2 a.m. to 5 p.m.? Can we enforce that? No, you cannot enforce it. Your local municipal entity can enforce it. Can or should we report Can or should we report long-term parked vehicles to the city as abandoned? You bet. Do it. Inundate your local municipal entity. Could an HOA stop an owner from developing a garden instead of grass in a park strip? If it's in the right of way, probably not, because of that last sentence. Additionally, the association shall not require that a public right of way be used in any certain manner. You cannot require it be used in a certain manner, even in a tree lawn. Okay. Call abandoned vehicles line in your city or inoperable vehicles right away. Yep. Inundate your local municipal entity. Call them all the time, daily. For things like expired tags, inoperable vehicles, etc., you could adopt a policy directing complaining owners to submit complaints to the local authorities. Yep, exactly. This may be a silly question, but are parking lots in the HOA considered? No. Public, again, if they are owned by the association, private streets, private parking lots, those are yours. Go nuts, enforce away, have fun. As long as you're doing it in accordance with the next bill we're going to talk about. This is the streets. Look at your plats. Really look at your plats. Find out what the public right-of-way is. Contact your attorney. Tell us how big are the public right-of-ways. How far past the sidewalks do they go? It's easy. Every plat will have a center line. It will say what the center line is and how far out the public right-of-way goes. Okay, Angela, can we regulate commercial vehicles and driveways? As long as they are in the community on private property, yes. You can. Now, that sounds weird that you can tell somebody what to do on their property, but not the public right of way. But, Angela, what you think about the unintended consequence of doing that. The unintended consequence of, dear owner, you cannot park your commercial vehicle in your driveway. Guess where that commercial vehicle is going? Into the street where you can't touch it. Okay? So you're going to have to start looking at these things and what are the unintended consequences of doing that. And again, it is just the public right of way. This does not go into effect until September, correct? So we'll keep doing what we're doing until then. You betcha. September. It becomes effective 90 days after the end of the legislative session. So September. All right. Hold your questions. I know there are more. We're moving on because I'm never going to get through these other bills. Pending signature. Okay. These have not yet been signed. They have passed, but they have not been signed by the Speaker. Last time I checked, which was this morning, they have not been signed by the Speaker of the House. They have not been signed by the President of the Senate. They are not on Governor Polis's desk just yet. That doesn't mean anything. It just means they haven't gotten around to the actual act of signing the bills. The Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate is required to sign these bills. They both pass. All of the bills that we're about to talk about have passed. They're done. Okay? It is just that they have not made it to the governor's desk. When they make it to the governor's desk, if you want to putting on a hardcore press for a veto of these bills, you can start now, you can start then. But like I said, Governor Polis has not even had a chance, technically, to review these or even consider vetoing. Do I think Governor Polis knows what he's going to do with each one of these bills? Yeah, I think he already knows, but that doesn't change the fact that he technically does not even have these on his desk yet. So here we go. Towing. HB 221314. Really what this bill did is put a whole bunch of restrictions on your tow company. It requires a whole bunch of new stuff for non-consensual tows. What this means to associations is requires notice prior to towing, and the notice must occur in a certain variety of different ways. You are required to put the name of your tow company in a sign facing the street as people enter your community. It must also contain certain very specific information. Now, obviously, what's going to happen is your tow company is going to make sure that this is, because a lot of these burdens fall on the tow company is going to be coming out and removing and replacing their signs and making sure they're put in the right area. Okay? You cannot tow unless 2 notices have been given for parking in the same manner. You can tow on the 3rd notice, but you must actually go up, sticker the car, tell the owner what they're doing wrong, and that it will be towed if they continue to park in this manner. You have to give 2 of those. And they have to be a certain time apart. And when the tow company comes out, they must be able to prove those notices have been given. The association can call for the tow. It cannot be an immediate tow unless the car is in a fire lane or is blocking a driveway. It makes it harder to tow. And again, I'm not, does this apply to commercial, retail, and office building properties as well? This applies to anything that is subject to the Colorado Common and Stonish Act. And yes, it is subject to any private property. Okay, this is pretty extensive, like I said. So if you have an office building and you need to put these exact same signs up, if you've got a commercial condominium, these same types of signs up. You cannot tow unless you are noticing. Again, what this came out of was a whole bunch of cars being towed during the pandemic, during the lockdown. They were towed for a variety of different reasons, mostly expired tags, which is why I hate it if you're towing for expired tags. It's not your job. So how much time needs to be given? It's no less than 24 hours, and it has to be certain intervals, and it has to be done in certain ways. So it is, let me see, this is 1137, no, 1314. Let me dig into my big 1314 act. There it is. So as we go through, see your question. Let me pull up the exact language so I'm not misleading anybody, because I don't like to do that. Okay, here we go. 1314 states, non-consensual tows, vehicle that was abandoned on private property, still subject to all this fun stuff. Goes into how the liens are established. This was a huge bill. Okay, the photographs before the tow must show the position of the vehicle in relation to the reason, including any sign that the vehicle was towed. You got to be able to take pictures of the car in relation to the tow sign. Upon demand by an authorized or interested person, towing company carrier shall provide copies of the photographs. So, like I said, a lot of these are falling to the tow company. Vehicle blocks a driveway or roadway enough to effectively obstruct a person's access to the driveway or roadway is reason for intermediate tow. Okay, towing carrier property, giving the vehicle owner or operator 24 hours written notice unless the vehicle owner or operator has received 2 previous notices. So you cannot tow unless you give 2 separate notices, 24 hours apiece. Condo, community, private parking lot, parking policy states immediate tow if parked in someone else's reserved parking space. Can the vehicle still be towed immediately? I would argue no, because that is not impacting somebody's ability. It's not impacting a fire lane, and it's not impacting somebody's access to their driveway. Now, you could say it's a driveway. That's fine. We can make that argument. I would check with your towing company if that's private property. So again, it's one of those things we're going to feel through this bill. But I think the answer is, yeah, you probably can, but I would make really sure you can do it and let, quite frankly, the owner of the parking space call, not the association. Let the owner call. Then it's on the owner. Okay. Let me see, move through. Is the posted sign considered a notice? No, it's not. A posted sign is a requirement, but you have to sticker the damn car. Can the HOA boot tires? Yes. This bill says nothing about booting. It is the forcible, non-consensual removal of a vehicle from an area. Does not address booting at all. Can an owner tow from a parking space that is deeded to them? Yes. But again, have the owner call, not the association. You're not the manager of that space. Who notices the management company or the towing company? If it is towed by the association, it's the association. If it's towed from a deeded parking space, let the owner call. Get the association out of it. CCR state no notice is required prior to towing. No, it's not. You cannot. The CCRs are irrelevant in relation to this. Unless it's in a fire lane or unless it's in blocking a driveway from the common element, you cannot tow without notice. Okay, just know. Posted signs, parking permits issued, private lot, private roads, can they be towed for not having a permit? After notice, yes. They have to be told they can be parked. Yes, that's, you can do all that, but you still have to notice them. That if they continue to park in this manner, they have to do it. Handicap spots, again, yes, you can tow from handicap spots. What if you do not know who the owner is? How do we notify the owner? Sign on the car, notice the car. With proper notice of scheduled work, would there be any issue with a spot move if the vehicle is not moved? If you're not removing it from the community, I think so. You cannot, because this is the bill talks about impound lots. So you can move it from one place to another non-conceptually and charge them for the cost. But again, this is a bill that impacts the association. So we're going to have to start working through this. If you have towing rules, if you have towing policies, we're going to have to update them. This is now, again, towing is harder. It's not impossible. It's harder. That's all. So if a sticker is left unmoved on a vehicle for 3 days, is that considered the third notice? It is if you sticker it twice. 24 hours, third day, get rid of it. Yep, absolutely. This is all sorts of fun, isn't it? We're having fun. Okay. There's also, like I said, required signage. The property owner must have posted signage visible to the facing the driver at each entryway into a parking area, indicated that the parking spaces are designated for one or more specified residents and that the vehicle parked without authorization is subject to being towed. The sign must also contain the international symbol for towing, no smaller than 4 inches. So you have to put a little tow truck on it that's going to be towed, moved. Like I said, a lot of this is going to fall on the towing company. Where do you put the sticker? I'd put it on a window. What if someone says their vision was blocked in an accident because of your sticker after they drove off? That's why I'd stick it on the window. Not the windshield, but the window. As long as it's on the car. And if you've used these stickers, you know they are a mother to pull off. So do not impede the windshield. I'd stick it maybe on a back window if you can. Like I said, because you would be subject to liability, but again, sticker, or make the stickers more easily removed. All right, here we go. Like I said, we'll come back to all of this fun stuff at the end. All right, here we go. The big ones that we've been waiting for during this class. HB 1137. This again has not been given to the governor yet. It has not been signed, but it's going to. Like I said, they have a legal requirement to do so. I lost my PowerPoint presentation. Sorry, my friends. Okay, here we go. This is the so-called transparency bill. Or more importantly, the board accountability and transparency really involves collections foreclosures. The highlights. Requires a formal vote of majority of the board in a closed hearing to refer an account to an attorney collections agency. This is similar to foreclosure, but this is now a specific reason for an executive session. You must go into an executive session because the legislature has deemed referring somebody to a collection account, a collection agency, or for foreclosure as a unreasonable invasion of privacy rights. E-vote okay? No. You now must take votes, and an owner is allowed to ask for the results of the votes. Okay, so you're going down, unit 1, do you want to send it to collection? You bet, send it to collection. Okay, well, how's the vote? 5-0, great, send it. All right, like I said, I'm not going to answer questions on this until we get through it. So I've got it marked exactly where I'm starting, but I'll come back to them. I promise we'll go through them all. So tee them up. It'll be fun. Okay. Next. The owner may request and receive the results of the vote taken at the meeting. What this means, I don't know. Do you just say it passed unanimously? Do you say it passed 3-2? Do you say it passed or failed? The owner may request how the results of the vote. I've never really determined or been able to determine what the results of the vote means. Is it the score? The Rockies lost 10-7 the other night. Or is it, do you go through and say, this person scored, this person scored, this person scored? I think initially I would recommend just saying it was a unanimous vote. I hope it's always a unanimous vote, but that's how you report it. Okay. Notice. Boy, it requires all sorts of notices up front before you can do anything. The notice of the delinquency must be sent. Okay, this is before you can really do anything other than this is still on the management company. The notice of the delinquency must be sent by certified mail with a confirmation of receipt. Okay, return receipt requested. 2, physically posted in a unit owner's unit. Somebody is going to have to go out with the notice, tape it to their front door. Okay? You have to. Next, it must also be sent by one of the other a third manner. Sent via email to an email address given to the association. Sent by text to a phone number given to the owner given to the association by the owner, or first class mail. So what obviously I'm going to recommend is you send the notice certified mail return receipt requested and by first class mail at the same time. Send them both that way. So the notice must be written in a second language if requested by the owner. So you have to send the first one out in English. Then I, Joe Blow, owner, can come back to you and say, I prefer to receive my messages in Cantonese. You must now go get somebody that speaks Cantonese, or at least writes Cantonese, to translate your notices, and all future notices must be sent in that language along with English. I can also go out and say, my second cousin Bob, he's my designated representative. I want you to send all notices to Bob as well as me, and you must send the identical notices to Bob and David in the exact same way. Text, email, first class mail, certified mail. Bob better get the same ones I get. If Bob doesn't get the same ones I get, guess what? You've violated the statute and we're starting over. All right. Will the HOA need, oh, I'm coming back. Sorry, Danielle, I'm coming back. All right. Continued. Oh, because this is a big bill. Quarterly notices. On a quarterly basis, the association must send owners with delinquencies an itemized list of all assessments, fines, fees, and charges owed. It's actually monthly. The final bill that came out, you have to give on a monthly basis any owner that's delinquent a statement of their account detailing all assessments, fines, fees, and charges owed. You can no longer get around that. Got to do it, my friends. Okay. As we go down, interest rates cannot exceed 8% per year. There was some discussion whether this applied to pre or post Kiowa communities or only post Kiowa communities. I believe the way this bill double backs on itself and is very so convoluted and doing mental gymnastics, kind of going back and forth all over the place, the 8% applies to all communities. So whatever your declaration says, whatever your collection policy says, throw it out. It's now 8%. This bill is going to require every association adopt at least a couple of different policies, being its collection policy, being its conduct and meeting policy, and your covenant enforcement policy. Because we've kind of just talked about the collection piece, but a lot of this applies to your covenant enforcement piece as well. So interest rates not greater than 8% per year. Grace period, annual assessment installments must be paid within 15 days of the due date. If monthly, no legal action unless failed to pay at least 3 installments of your payment plan. Payment plans are now 18 months. You must offer an 18-month payment plan. And you know the kicker of this one? The owner gets to pick the amount of the payment as long as it's at least $25. So it's one of those things that you can send out a payment plan. You can say, hey, owner, do you want a payment plan? 18 months divided by this, plus your regulars, plus your ongoing assessment equals this. They can say, you know what? I don't feel like paying that. I'll pay my regular assessment or my annual assessment plus 25% of the delinquency. They can apparently, based on the way this bill is written, make that decision every month. So they can kind of say, yeah, I'll enter into a payment plan, but this month I'm only going to pay $25. So you'll have this kind of bulk payment, a balloon payment at the end of this. So you've got a situation where your assessments are really going to be kind of going up and down if the owner takes full advantage of this stuff. It's $25. I know I told you I shouldn't even look at these questions. I'm sorry. I love being distracted because then I get to go through all this stuff, but we're going to go through it. I promise. Okay. All right. And there's more. Designated contact. We talked about this. Unit owner may identify somebody else to receive notices in addition to the notices you send me, not in lieu of. It's both. So you're going to have to do both. Okay. Your application of payments. You now must apply payments first to assessments owed and then to fines, fees, late charges, attorney's fees. It's the exact opposite of you have historically done it. And there's a reason for this. It's because now they can pay down the principal and leave just those other fines, fees, and charges out there, and it makes it much harder to pursue a collection action just for fines, fees, charges. So they get to make these payments and they get to do it on their own. Okay. Again, your policy is going to have to change. Regardless of what's in your declaration, regardless of what's in your collection policy, you're going to have to change your collection policy anyway. All right. Small claims court. This now specifically allows for disputes arising from assessments, fines, or fees owed, if not exceeding $7,500, to be filed in small claims court. This is concurrent jurisdiction. It's not normal jurisdiction. So, or it does not take away from the county court's jurisdiction. So I'm going to argue this is absolutely an irrelevant provision because associations, I'm going to recommend associations continue to just use county court. You'll overwhelm small claims court. Plus, there's actually a court rule that says corporations must be represented by an association, by an attorney in court. So therefore, even if you do go to small claims court, you still have to be represented by an attorney. It's a court rule. So that changes absolutely nothing. What does happen, though, is coming up, wait for it. Okay, we talked about extending the payment plans. Authorizes an owner to pay debt in monthly installments of at least $25 at the choice of the debtor, $25. You cannot pursue legal action unless an owner, against an owner, unless you have offered the payment plan and they failed to pay at least 3 of the monthly installments within 15 days of the due date. So they they get to miss a whole bunch of payments and you can't do anything about it. Okay? All right. Fines and violations. This is the other half of that bill. No more per day fines. No foreclosure on balances that are just fines. Interest, late fees, attorney fees, only assessments. And kind of that statement, remember, if application of payments is first to the balance of the assessments, it essentially takes foreclosure off the table for everything. If violation threatens the public health and safety and welfare, written notice of the violation must be given and an opportunity to cure. And then you may fine, but only after 72 hours. If no cure is within 72 hours, you may fine every other day and take legal action. You still have to offer notice and an opportunity for a hearing, or the owner, the opportunity for a hearing becomes, the notice becomes the notice, but you still have to offer the opportunity for a hearing. If a violation does not threaten the public health and safety, and kind of getting back, why are you giving somebody 72 hours to cure a violation that threatens the public health and safety? I haven't figured that one out yet, but it's okay. You must. You have to give 72 hours, and then you can fine or take legal action. So again, why would you fine something that threatens the life, health, safety of somebody? I recommend just going straight to court and making the court the determination. All right, if a violation does not threaten public health and safety, okay, written notice by certified mail with confirmation of receipt, return receipt requested of the violation, and you must offer 2 30-day cure periods. Then you may fine. If there's no you may fine. They have 30 days. You got to tell them it's not done. You can go out. The total amount of the fines cannot exceed $500 total. So again, this concept of a fine for this and a fine for that, if somebody has weeds in their yard, no more than $500. If somebody they leave their garbage cans out perpetually, total of $500 fines, and I can leave them out forever as long as I never take them back. Okay. Once cured, an association must notify the owner of the outstanding fine balance and that no further fines for violation will be issued. You now have an affirmative duty to tell the owner they've cured it. You have to go out and look, and you have to tell them they've done. The fine policy must specify the intervals upon which fines may be levied for continuing violation. Hearings, disciplinary hearings are considered unwarranted invasions of privacy and may now be done in executive session. Ooh, all right. Again, there's still more. Oh, this bill just keeps giving. Foreclosures. Board members, employees of management company, employees of law firms representing associations, or their immediate family members cannot purchase foreclosed units. I actually have to text my brother now. He's a real estate investor. He goes out and he buys foreclosed units. I've just put him out of business because of what I do for a living. That's a kick in the teeth. If an association violates any foreclosure law, the owner may seek punitive damages for up to $25,000 plus court costs and attorney's fees. It's ridiculous. They have a 5-year statute of limitations on that. Then come back if you foreclose somebody and violate any of the laws. This actually does not even say you have to complete the foreclosure. But if you start a foreclosure and you violate any foreclosure laws, they have these potential for damages. So again, what's going to happen is you are going to have to start following all of these rules to the letter without deviating. And one of the things also that this bill doesn't provide for, or this bill kind of gets at, is it just says, I can give you a new language that I want to receive notices on. It doesn't say I have to speak it. It just says I have to give you a language that I want you to deliver me notices. It also doesn't say that I have to do that in good faith, so I can sit there and I can give you a new language every week. I can tell you I speak German one day and French the next. And guess what? I'm going to get them in English, German, and French, depending on when I tell you I speak it. So the other things with this bill. So let's just kind of go through it and make sure I didn't miss anything. All right. You can do nothing until you take all these wonderful actions. The management company must also, like I said, record all the notices. You better have a log of how many times and what you have done to reach an owner. And when you do that, you're going to have to provide that to your attorney before the attorney does anything, because that honestly is going to become an exhibit to the complaint, because the attorney is going to have an affirmative duty to make sure you followed all this crap. I mean, all this wonderful experiences, because we're not going to put our malpractice on the line for pursuing a collection action that we are not 100% sure or 100% positive you followed all the required actions. Okay? So you got to record all the contacts. You got to do all of that fun stuff. The owner may also notify the association if the owner prefers that correspondence and notices from the association be made in a language other than English. Doesn't say for how long. I can prefer it in French one day and, like I said, German another. Okay. Must receive, as we said, if a preference is not indicated, the association shall send the correspondence and notices in English. Unit owner and the owner's designated contact must receive the same correspondence and notices anytime communications are sent. If I tell you to send something to Bob, you better send Bob and me the exact same communications. Do not deviate. Don't get off of that. Exact same communications. Okay? All right. Then, the alternative means of reaching. Like I said, 2 required ways. Certified mail, return receipt requested, and physically posting a copy of the notice of the delinquency to the unit owner's address. You must go out and throw a notice up on the door. Have to. Take a picture of it. Prove it. You have to log that contact. Cannot get around that. Then you must also send it by first class mail. One of the ways of first class mail, text, email. Okay, once you do all that fun stuff, you can only refer a delinquent account to a collection agency or attorney unless a majority of the executive votes to refer the matter in a recorded vote at a meeting conducted pursuant to 33.3.308.4E, which is the unreasonable invasions of privacy. Okay? Go through all this other fun stuff. I mean, this is, like I said, this is an 18-page bill. All sorts of fun. Okay. Certified mail for violations as well. Certified mail return receipt requested. Owner has 2 30-day cure periods. If they send you a picture that it is cured, the date it is cured is on that day, whenever you receive that picture. So in a way, the owner gets to determine if it's cured. If they don't provide you physical photographic evidence of it being cured, you must, upon notice that it's cured, go out and inspect it and determine it's cured. Got to go out. Got to make sure. Yeah, it's deemed cured on the date that the unit owner sends notice. As it was mentioned before, once cured, you can no longer fine. Fines don't. Fines don't accumulate anymore. All right. Talked about the languages. Talked about the interval upon which fines must be levied. Your collection policy is now going to be about 80 pages, or a collection policy. Your covenant enforcement policy is going to be about 80 pages. That before the balance turns over, let me see, written in English, all sorts of fun stuff. We talked about that. Okay. Oh, this is an actual kicker in the teeth. And just for fun, again, when you do your notices, you must provide a description of what legal action the association may take against the unit owner, including a description of the types of matters that the association or the unit owner may take to small claims court. So you're out enforcing your covenants, and you say, oh, this owner has weeds. You take a picture of it, you put it in a notice. Okay? You send it by certified mail. You post it on the property. You send it by regular mail. Your notice must also include not only the, dear owner, if you fail to clean this up, we can take you to small claims court, or we can take you to county court to clean it up. But you conceptually must also include, and dear owner, you have the right to sue the association if we do it wrong in small claims court. It says, the types of matters that the association or unit owner may take to small claims court. Does that mean that you have to give notice? It says, dear owner, you can countersue in small claims court, or dear owner, you can sue the association in small claims court for violations of the statute. Is that sufficient? It's I don't know why we are telling the unit owner what they can or can't do, but apparently we are now. So we'll unpack that again in a little bit. All right. All right. 22/8/1387. Again, waiting to be sent to the governor. It will be sent to the governor. It's on its way. The reserve fund bill. This one's fun too. And when you look at this one, we're going to have to figure out kind of as we go down it exactly the impact this has on community associations. This requires the declarant to obtain a cursory level 4 study. A level 4 reserve study is defined as, it's merely for budgetary purposes. It's, hey, I got 17 roofs. They're going to be bad in 30 years. Therefore, we should start doing this fun stuff. They can use it for budgetary purposes during the period of declarant control. This is for a new community coming out of the ground. However, now, as a part of transition, the association is required to receive from the declarant a level 1 or full reserve study as part of the transition documents. And you are required, the declarant is required to deliver a fully funded reserve account pursuant to that level 1 reserve study. So when you transition a new community, you are required, the declarant is required to provide fully funded reserve studies. I know anybody that's attended any of our classes in the past, and it says true or false, the declarant must deliver to the association fully funded reserves. Well, that just went from false to true. You must be provided fully funded reserve studies. Level 1 reserve study must be redone every 30 years. It also must be updated with a level 2 or level 3 every 5 years. So once you get your once you get your level 1, which you are required to have by September 2024 or July 1st, 2024, you are required to update it every 5 years. Okay. The annual budget now, when you adopt an annual budget, you must include the following information in your budget. The estimated revenue and operating expenses of the association. All right, not a problem. You do that anyway. Information as to whether the budget has been prepared on a cash or tax basis of accounting. You got to tell them how you're doing your accounting. The total reserve funds of the association as of the date of the preparation of the budget. The estimated reserve funds of the association will require, the estimated reserve funds the association will require for major shared components in the current budget fiscal year based on the most recent reserve study or reserve study update. So you have to look at your reserve study. And you have to look at your expected expenditures. And you have to tell everybody how much you think you're going to spend in the year. And once you tell everybody how much you think you're going to spend in the year, you have to have a general explanation of how the estimated reserve funds are computed. Okay, that's all now in your budget requirements. Okay. You also have to do the amount the association anticipates that the association will need to collect in its current budget fiscal year to fund future estimated reserve funds pursuant to the most recent reserve study or updated the estimated reserve study in relation to the reserve funds in the budgeted fiscal year. So again, you've got to look at it and say, okay, we expect this much this year, this much this year, this much this year. We expect, based on our 5-year updates, how much money we're supposed to have. And then you've got to tell them notification by the executive board of the unit owners of the method by which additional funding may be obtained if the executive board is not fully funding the reserve funds with common expense assessments. So you've got to tell people, guys, we're not fully funding, and this is where we're going to get the money. But here's kind of the kick in the teeth on this one as it double back around just for fun. Okay. Why can't I find this bill? Okay. When you go through this, I would argue that you are required to fully fund your reserve funds because they've made certain definitions, or there exist certain definitions of what adequate reserves are. And adequate reserves are sufficient funds to meet all your anticipated reserve requirements without the need for borrowing or special assessments. Okay, so if that's the definition of adequate reserves, and then it says in the bill that you're required to tell owner you can use any method provided in the declaration to obtain adequate reserves. Remember, anything in the declaration to obtain adequate reserves, but adequate reserves are defined as reserves set aside for specific purposes without the need for borrowing or special assessments. So you can use everything to get to adequate reserves as long as you don't borrow or special assess. Means you have one other choice. Sell your soul, or fully fund your reserve accounts based on your most recent reserve study. Okay. Reserve expenditures made in accordance with the reserve study for an update or to address emergent life circumstances are not subject to veto by the owners. If you have something that is in your reserve study, or if it is an emergent life circumstance, something that's impacting the common shared facilities that is greater than $30,000, it's not subject to veto by the unit owners. Meaning, if you don't have those monies, you can probably special assess without a vote of the owners. But the point of this bill is that so you are funding your reserves in such a manner as you don't need special assessments or borrowing, which means you are going to have to start fully funding to that anticipated reserve study update. The funding plan employed by an association to require contributions to the reserve funds may use any of the funding sources permitted by the declaration in this Article 33.3, so long as it results in adequate reserve funds, which I said is defined as funds sufficient to meet all anticipated expenses without the need for borrowing or special assessment. How do those play together? They play together. Oh, and yeah, by the way, remember, you got a budget for anticipated 18-month payment plans. And remember that first bill we talked about that's been signed that you actually have to go out and fix your common elements? You got a budget for all of those unanticipated expenditures too. This puts so much pressure on your common expense assessments is that I see no other way but for associations assessments to go up. There's no other way around it. Okay. We're not done yet. Notwithstanding the provisions of Article 33.3 of the association's governing documents, the executive board may amend the association's annual budget or impose special assessments if necessary to fund government-imposed requirements or to address emergent life circumstances. At any point in time in life, if you guys have an emergent life circumstance or a code change where the government says you best come in and fix these balconies, all you have to do is amend your budget and say to your owners, pay it. Do it. Pay it. You can't veto it. Finally, if you are using a qualified professional investment advisor, an association may invest up to 25% of its reserve accounts in something other than conservative instruments, including equities and mutual funds, which are not insured by the federal government. So 75% of your reserve account must be in FDIC insured bank accounts earning, a tenth of a percent, if that. You can invest up to 25% outside of that, but your decisions are still subject to the standards set forth in Section 7.128.401 in good faith, which requires in good faith that is an ordinary, reasonably prudent person. So it's one of those things that your interest rates are now going down, your budgets are going up, you have to have reserve funds, and this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is an absolute knee-jerk response to what happened in Florida. And they're not going to allow it to happen here. Therefore, you are now fully funding your reserves. I see no other way around it based on this. Now, it doesn't come out and say you have to have fully funded reserve accounts, but that's what it implies. And if you're not fully funding it, you have to show where the money's coming up to get to adequate reserves, which is, again, remember, adequate reserves don't include borrowing or special assessments. So you're going to have to be a hell of a lot closer to your reserve requirements And you're supposed to kind of consistently build to those funds when you set your budget. All right, here we go. I'm going to go all the way back up. We're going to do these two last bills all at once. Where was my bookmarker? Oh, yeah, about 100 questions in. All right. Okay. Handicap spots. We said yes. Thank you. Okay. All right. Where do you put the sticker? Okay, EVO. So, Marcia, we talked about EVOs. It states you have to do this in an executive session, which means it is now a mandated meeting. You cannot get out of this mandated meeting. So you have to have a meeting. It says no EVO because, okay, Angela answered. All right. Is a phone Zoom conference considered an EVO? No, that's actually in attendance at a meeting. That's actually a meeting. So you can do it by Zoom. You cannot do it by email. Must we post on the door? No, Lisa, you do. You have to post on the door. Somebody does. It doesn't have to be you, but somebody does. And then take a picture of it. Okay. Okay, Angela made a comment. All right. Will the HOA need to convert a notice to a homeowner in Braille if requested? Yep, sure will. If somebody comes to you and says, I'm blind, give it to me in Braille. Actually, you know what will happen is somebody will come to you and say, oh, it says that you have to provide this to me in the language that I choose. I choose Braille. Yeah, you most certainly do. And then I'm going to tell you, like I said, Cousin Bob needs it in Braille too. Braille, Cantonese, French, German. I jokingly say, I'm going to tell somebody I prefer to communicate in Klingon. Romulan. Why not? What is it? It's the elfin tongue from The Hobbit. Or my favorite, Latin. I want everything done in Latin. Bring it to me in Latin, people. Yeah, whatever language. All right. Can monthly notices be sent by email? That's actually really interesting. I'm going to say email and regular mail. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I would just send everything in every way possible. If you've got an email, send an email, but I would also send it in the post so you have physical copies. All right, can I go back through the bills in the end and mention which are pre and post Kiowa? They're all for both. This is not a pre-post Kiowa thing anymore. Okay, Angela, technically, it's always recommended. You guys are all going to have to amend your policies. Like I said, we're guessing based if everything gets signed, at least 5 policies are going to have to be done. Your conduct a meeting, because you now have a new reason to go into executive session. Your collection, because of all the monstrosity that must appear in it. Your covenant enforcement, because of all the monstrosities that must appear in it. Your conduct a meeting, let me see that. Your reserve study and your investment and reserve policies. All are going to have to be redone. Okay. All notices are just collection notices? All notices. Do monthly notices need to be sent out in 3 ways as indicated? No, but I would send them out in mail and email. All these new rules, but yet CAM required was vetoed. Yep, you bet, sure was. We don't care about the CAMs. We just want to make sure that you know what you're doing. Okay, liens are considered actual. Nope, Angela, liens are. You cannot take any collection action, including recording of a lien, until you follow these steps. Is there any payment plan in the place now that the owner does not have the right to change agreed amount? Nope. Oh, well, the owner doesn't have the right to change it now, but like I said, September, if and when this bill is signed, and again, this bill has not even been placed on the governor's desk. So there's time. The governor has time to change his mind or veto. We can talk about that in a minute. This is, if there's a payment plan now, no, you just keep going until September, and then we can look at it. If they're on a payment plan now and into September and it's 6 months, that's still 4 months away, so they should be almost done with it anyway. Can utility fees on condos be considered assessments, not finer fee collection purposes? Lisa, I personally think utility fees is something a management company and associations have come up with to try and separate out assessments versus actual use. Most condominium documents, if they're in condominiums, merely state that utilities are part of the common expenses. So no, bottom line, they're common expenses. Owner shoots through multiple townhome walls, have to give 72 hours notice to cure. Yes, you can tell them they don't have 72 hours to cure. Or they can't do it again for 72 hours. Let me see. Lots of notice requirements on the part of the HOA. Where's the requirement on part of the owners to provide address and contact information? That's technically in the declaration. It is also now whatever address you do. Remember, okay, let's take a step back and go back into what was happening this spring. All of the horrible, horrible stories out of Green Valley Ranches. I had no idea my unit was getting foreclosed upon. I had no idea until I came home and there was a lockbox on my unit that I had been foreclosed upon. Forget the fact that that owner had been personally served with a lawsuit. Forget the fact that that owner had actually gone to a hearing and tried to mediate it. Oh, but I had no idea. These are the stories that were being told. The one down in the Springs where, I didn't speak English and I found the papers that had been served and they were under my front mat and I didn't know until all this. The attitude at the legislature and the attitude that everybody testified for this bill was, or for 1137 was if I'd have only known, it would have been cured and I would never have gotten this out of hand if I'd have only known. This is, of course, the international sign of distress. It is because of these complaints of if I'd have only known, it wouldn't have happened. You now have all this notice requirement. And you're going to have to go through all of this notice requirement to make sure that you are doing it. Now, again, if somebody doesn't tell you that they want to receive notices in a different language, English works. But you cannot get out of the fact of you have to go to the unit and post it on the door. You must send it by certified mail return receipt requested and publish it on the door, or notice put it on the door and go through this other fun stuff. Okay. What if we don't receive the return receipt back? Diane, that was actually quite a discussion, because before the original bill as it was drafted said you had to receive it before you could do anything. That was removed out of the bill. But I think at least if it doesn't come back and you've sent it by U.S. mail, which is, again, why I suggested send it by U.S. mail, and you put it on the door, you've complied. That's all that you have to do. You've complied. But you're going to have to keep that return receipt, and you're going to have to keep either the refused or the not accepted. You're going to have to keep all of that information so that you can put it into a collection file. Wow. Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely wild. Agreed. So if a fine for an exposed trailer on private property is $125 per violation, they can only be fined $500 total and can leave it there forever. Yep. Nailed it. $500. Now, if they move the trailer and bring it back, that's a second violation. So essentially what this bill does is it gives you absolutely no incentive to cure a violation. So again, if my violation is garbage cans and I put it out on the front door and I get up to $500, guess what? I have just paid $500 for the privilege of leaving my garbage can on the street forever. Forever. And exposed trailer, yep, gets to go forever. If they pay the $500, you can't touch it. It's done. It's over. Is that on HOA foreclosed units or all foreclosed units? It's on HOA foreclosed units. If you're referring to the prohibition on board members, attorneys, the board members or immediate family buying foreclosed units, it is just the just that. It's just for the foreclosed. And actually, when I think about it, it doesn't go into is it just the attorney's office that's doing the foreclosure, or is it just the attorney's office, or is it just all foreclosures? Like I said, I kind of looked at that. I'm like, whoops, my brother's screwed. But it is, you can make an argument it's just the law firm that's doing it. Okay, because if I have no idea what's going on, it's not my file. The people should be able to do it. Okay. Do all violated notices be sent by certified mail? Yep. Or just the final stage? All violations. Well, again, if you're planning on doing anything, all notices. A cured violation cannot stay open for subsequent notices. You have to start over. Yep. A cured violation starts everything over. Is Google Translate an acceptable method to comply with this requirement? I'm going to say no. I've seen some really wonk Google Translates. I honestly, I'd say no. I think you're going to have to go out and find somebody. Now, if Google gets better in its translation, yeah. Or maybe run it through Google Translate and then run it by a translator. Yeah. But it's one of those things. Again, I really don't want you saying you have to pay this amount due within 30 days and it comes out somehow of you have the option of paying this amount in 30 days. No, can't do it. This only applies to foreclosures and not getting a judgment from the court. Nope. All collection actions. Sorry, Jonathan. Another issue with HB 22-1137 is that you cannot initiate a foreclosure unless the owner has either declined your payment plan, accepted and defaulted. So again, it's failing to respond, accepting or defaulting. I don't know. I would recommend with that, you just, when you offer an 18-month payment plan, whether they respond or not, you just calculate it out 18-month in equal payments and start sending it out. And then that way you can say, we offered it and they failed. What if they don't return the receipt? Again, that's not required anymore. What if the homeowner lives out of state? Who cares? You still have to post on the property and you still have to send it certified mail. Does not change a thing. Sorry, Sabrina, or Suzanne. It's doesn't matter. You still have to send notices. You got to send them to the owner. You got to send them, throw it up there on the property. Covenant enforcement letters must be posted on the doors and collection letters. Yep. Does altitude law have any sense of Polis will veto any of this? None whatsoever. It is, remember, this came out of the legislature with pretty good bipartisan support, not total, but pretty good. And given this is an election year and Governor Polis is up for election, I can't imagine him vetoing a bill that was so politically charged. He may not sign it, but if he doesn't sign it, then it just becomes law anyway. So it's one of those things that, your guess is as good as mine. I know that they are getting inundated with veto requests, but we're going to have to see. Like I said, in fairness, it's not even sitting on his desk yet. So I can't really default anybody for not coming out with a statement. Does the 5-year reserve study have to be updated by a reserve study specialist? Yep. The association can do their own reserve study, has kind of been removed given the liability opposed with it. Plus, quite frankly, why would you even want to have a board done reserve study with the liability that's going to be attached to it? What if your reality is more current than your reserve study? Well, make sure reserve study is reality. You can't get around it, guys. Your budgeting must be based on the reserve study, period. That's how you rely. That's how you opt into the business judgment rule to protect yourself from any liability. Plus, it says you must budget according to what's in the reserve study. Will a level 1 reserve study really be required every 30 years? Nope, every 30 years for a level 1. Updates level 2 to level 3 every 4 or every 5 years. So level 2 and 3s every 5 years, level 1 every 30 years. Level 1 is really a full reserve study. It's supposed to get at the physical, the structural, the roofs and all. So they figure once you have a full level 1 reserve study, you can update it every 5 years. As long as you're keeping up with it, you get a full level 1. Okay. Danile, let me see. Please list the types of communities, dollar amounts that are exempted from the reserve study bill. None. Depends on whether there are major components to replace. Sorry. Hate it when that happens. There. Okay. All right. Please list the type of communities, dollar amounts that are exempted from the reserve study bill. None. Depends upon whether there are major components replacement amounts. Yes, it's $30,000 is the threshold or half the budget. So it is intended to get at every community. Every community. The reserve funds bill doesn't account for HOA declarations to restricted. Nope, sure doesn't. But again, it's even though it doesn't consider that, if you cannot veto these expenditures and you can amend your budget mid-year to obtain what you need, I think what it really does is require the association to budget pursuant to its anticipated cash requirements because they can't be vetoed. Those expenditures can't be vetoed. So I think to the extent possible, you can try and live within your means, but at the same time, I think those assessment caps really have become overridden by this bill. Now, again, I think what you can do is adopt 2 budgets, do your regular budget and your reserve fund budget, and since it's not subject to veto, you can get around it. Or I actually attended a meeting the other night to amend the declaration to remove it. And I really think that's probably the best way to do it is tell your owners, if you have an association with a reserve fund or with an assessment cap, once this bill comes into place, I think you absolutely have to go to your owners and say, look, we want to amend this because it's coming anyway and it's just cleaner. Is the reserve fund bill only for? Nope, it's for everybody. Just for fun. Okay. Is any association exempt from this bill? No. Or is this just no? What about no? Sorry, Carly. What does the document have a cap on the amount of assessments? Kind of addressed it. What a nightmare. Yep. What about associations? Nope. Sorry. This is why I want to do all these questions at the end. CPI increases, again, I think they still in play as to your operating expenses, but these reserve fund requirements, I think it's a way around the CPI increases. And again, because they can't be vetoed, and you're allowed to adopt bills in the middle stream if you need to. So for good budgeting purposes, so you don't have these really high ups and downs, you can get around it. But again, budget to your CPI increase. I would highly recommend you try and get amended out just because it's cleaner. But on a case-by-case basis, let's talk. Talk to your attorney about what it really means. Does this now overrule an HEO's document restrict special assessments to fund the reserves? Nope. Or yes, it does. It absolutely restricts it. But again, your assessments, your common expense assessments are supposed to be budgeting to your anticipated cash requirements of your reserve fund based on an actual reserve study. Minimum 75% of the reserve funds must be invested and covered by FDIC. Yep. And you must do that. And that's only you. It has to be 100% unless you are being advised by a professional reserve or an professional investment counselor. Other than that, 100%. If you're not consulting with a professional, you can invest 25% into non-FDIC investments if you're consulting a professional. How long do they have to become fully funded? That part of the bill does not become effective until July 2024. But again, it's one of those things. Why waste time? Do over the next 2 years, start trying to get there, because you don't want to be sitting in a situation where you're there and you're now delinquent. You're behind the curve. Can the HOA bill any of the costs to post and send the notices back to the owner, increase or add to the collection? Yes, you can. But it's again, you have to tell them why and where it's coming. Oh, another part of 1137 is you can no longer charge. If you've got a company that charges owners for the status of assessments, there's a fee for the status of assessments. You can no longer charge that fee. So you must at no charge tell owners how much they own. Can we also assume this impacts the code of conduct fines? Yep, you can. It does. Do violations reset every 12 months? Nope. They don't. It's per violation. So parking an RV trailer boat only costs $500 compared to paying a storage fee forever? Yep. But again, Adam, if they move it, that cures the violations, so you start over. So you can hit them for another 500. Can't fine over 500? Okay, Angela answered. If we have to post notices to the door, could the homeowner come after us for trespassing? No. Since you're required to do it, they can't come after you for trespassing. Can you charge back a delinquent owner for the translation fees? No. Can the cost for collection notices postage be added to the account? Possibly, yes. But again, it's not the translation fees, because they have an absolute right to receive it in the language of their choice. Trespassing on the door, posting on door trespassing, no. If an owner lives out of state, can you post it on the door of the unit? Yes. It has to be on the door of the unit, even if they have renters. The concept being the renters will now call the owner and say, what the hell? Can we fine for single infractions or only for recurring infractions? You can fine for single infractions, and the $500 cap is for each individual and unique infraction. So if they have multiple infractions, you can fine $500 for each. So the budget has to meet the required reserves for the allocated year of contribution. Yes. Plus, again, it's got to be that year, but you want to look out, because you don't want to sit there and say, ooh, shoot, we made it this year, but every other year we're screwed. Sorry. If the owner lives out of the state, do we have to post notice on the actual home? Again, actual home. How soon do you have to be fully funded? 2 years. Did you say that it would email presentation out to those in attendance? I didn't say, but we will. If an HOA has a low percentage of funded reserves, how long the plan? Like I said, that part of the bill comes in 2 years. This was sent out earlier this morning. Great. Told you. We will. if the HOA, if the board can impose fees as reserves, can they override the requirement for vote approval of borrowing? Gary, I don't think so, because remember, your definition of adequate reserves excludes borrowing. So you still have to say, guys, we want to go borrow, and then you're going to have owner approved to borrow. And if owners, you don't approve this loan, then it's a special assessment to every owner, and that you can't veto. So it's a way to sell the loan, but boy, I don't think they can veto the loan, not the assessment. Status letter fees are now prohibited when ownership changes. Kevin, that's if your status letter does nothing more than say you owe this amount, yeah, you cannot charge for a status letter. If, however, your status letter says this is how much you owe, and this is the condition of the property, and there are no fines on the property, and there are no covenant violations on the property, and this is how much the assessments are, that I think you could charge for. But if your status letter is nothing more, there's nothing due on the account, nope, you can't charge for it. That's a status letter question. Can the HOA still turn over accounts legal if a violation continues and the fine limit has been reached? Yeah, but what can we, you just have to do it for, essentially fines become antiquated. I would argue you might as well, instead of fining, turn it over for enforcement. But again, you got to follow all the stuff first, and then we can file the lawsuit. And then we got to tell them we're going to sue them, but they can sue us. So that's what you got to do. All right. This can become unsafe for postings. I agree. Sorry. Do notices need to go to the mailing address and property address? It wouldn't hurt now that you have to post it in the actual, you got to post it on the door. You might as well pop one in the mail to the property too. Is privacy issue if they have renters? Nope, not anymore. Best presentation of the deal. I am the best presenter of the world. Thank you. Guys, it's 1:31. Thank you so very, very much. Have a great time. More is going to be coming out of this. You're going to see absolute massive blitzes from all the law firms, all the, anybody that has to do with this. You're going to get notices, and it really is. Stay in touch. It is going to be a cluster. You ain't kidding there. But thank you so much, everybody, again. We love you. You're the best. And we're going to get through this together. I promise. Bye now.